listening to the Cricket Podcast.
I think it was a disgraceful performance, and I think it should never be permitted to happen again.
That is very good.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Cricket Podcast. We're going to be talking about Sunrisers Hyderabad v Royal Challengers Bangalore. The best bowling or the best defensive bowling performance I've seen since yesterday, I think. I'm Jack Hope. Maxwell Brown is here. How are you doing, Maxwell Brown?
Hello. Oh, you switched that up a bit. Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very good actually. And Ross Legg, how are you doing, Ross Legg?
I'm all right, mate. I'm enjoying the IPL, just as the sponsors, the owners, and the players all want us to.
Good. I think that's yeah. I mean, I guess they do put it on as entertainment, don't they? You said that in a way that suggests that maybe we shouldn't be enjoying it. But I think we should.
Well, if Twitter's to be believed, then it's all fixed, and the IPL is pretty much worldwide wrestling. So,
Twitter.
Who are we going to believe?
Twitter just needs to take a see it tire strategic timeout, doesn't it, and have a look at itself.
Ross, before we get on with the show, have you got any messages for our listeners?
Yep, you should like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're watching, subscribe, what you're waiting for, and like the video and share it with your friends. Also follow us at The Cricket Pod on Twitter and Instagram. And also remember, we are now sponsored by Woodstock Cricket, so you can find them on their social media sites, and the link will be in the video. And if you want, get yourself a nice tasty cricket bat like Jack was sexily modelling there.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Do all of those things. Max, let's talk about the cricket. What happened?
Well, Jack, SRH won the toss again and again decided to bowl first, which goes against general convention and logic. But hey ho, that's their decision to make. RCB got off to a fairly good start with the power play. I think they went at about 8 and over and only lost the 1 wicket. But after that point, they just completely ground to a halt. And aside from the big show, breaking that trend to feast on 1 over from Shahbaz Ahmed, SRH kept chipping away, taking wickets at regular intervals. Rashid Khan was pretty much impossible to score off, and with some excellent catching in the deep from Pandey, Rashid Khan, and Vijay Shankar. RCB never really kicked on from their start. That said, a little cameo at the end from Jamieson and Maxwell's first IPL 50 in about 5 years, I think it was. RCB managed a competitive 149. In reply, yeah. Competitive, yeah.
Yeah, 149. Carry on. I'm not
Didn't
sure
be,
why that required repeating, but
yeah,
felt like it did at the moment.
Yeah. In reply, Saha went back to looking more like the footballing namesake Louis, wafting blindly at Siraj's opening over before finally being put out of his misery. But at the other end, David Warner was back in business and Manish Pandey kept things ticking, and SRH were fairly ahead of the rate. But in the same vein as recent games, as Jack maybe has alluded to, things started to get a bit sticky at the business end, and after Warner fell, the frail middle order all departed in completely identical fashion to Shahbaz Ahmed. Pace off the ball once again proving pretty difficult to deal with, and that was that, despite some last over hijinks which threatened to cause an unlikely victory for Sunrisers. RCB made it home and have made it 2 wins from 2.
Yeah, they have. I mean, I don't know if I necessarily saw that coming, particularly because they were playing Mumbai Indians and Sunrisers in their first 2 games, who, I think we tipped as the 2 most likely playoff contenders. Anyway, 2 wins for Royal Challengers Bangalore. They'll be happy. Kohli will be happy. Let's go back to the beginning, their batting performance. Max, as you said, it was kind of scratchy. Now, I guess the question that's going to hang over a lot of this podcast is, was the batting really bad, or was the pitch to blame? So let's start at the beginning with Royal Challengers Bangalore. 149 doesn't sound like a lot. Where's that on the scale of, I don't know, 0 to par?
I think probably about par on that pitch. I think it was basically struck a good balance and should make for a good game. I think it was definitely chaseable, but definitely defendable given what we know about how the pitch is playing at the moment. So, yeah.
So yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Batting wise, the star probably was Glenn Maxwell, the big show. How annoyed are Punjab Kings going to be right about now, Ross?
Well, there is a piece where this was his first 50 in 5 years of the IPL. So there is a little bit where you can only wait so long for someone to come good. But I mean, he seemed to have found a home at the Bangalore Galacticos, hasn't he? Really? I mean, without his kind of contribution to the end, they wouldn't have got, what was it, 40 off the last 3, which really propelled them to a competitive total. So it is good to see someone who is high profile actually delivering in this kind of cricket, because some of the other overseas players compared to the domestic Indian talent on show so far have flattered to deceive.
Well, we've all played fancy sports games, haven't we? I think Punjab Kings have just suffered from the traditional thing that always happens in those sorts of games. You've splurged your budget on Harry Kane, thinking that he's going to reap the rewards, and before you know it, he hasn't scored a goal in 12 games. You're like, well, this is just a very expensive hole in my lineup, so I better get rid of him. And then he goes and scores 2 hat-tricks in a row, and that's how it goes.
It's typically the Royal Challengers Bangalore move to release a player who then goes on to have an amazing season. So, it's nice for them to get lucky.
What goes around
on
comes
this
around.
occasion. Yeah. I think they batted all right, Royal Challengers Bangalore. At least to begin with, 91 for 2 of 12 overs. The guy we've not mentioned so far is Virat Kohli. How useful do you think his runs were, Max?
I think they were very, very important, actually. Sometimes we have a go at him a bit for, exactly the kind of innings that we saw today, which was waiting for him to go at the end and up that strike rate to something that you would be more familiar with in 2020 cricket. But on a day like today, it's really important to have someone at one end just basically staying there and keeping the scoreboard ticking, if not as quickly as you like it. And that allowed Glenn Maxwell the freedom at the other end to do what he did. And it's something that I think in the chase at the end, which I'm sure we'll get to, Sunrise has really struggled with after Manish Pandey basically just stopped being able to hit the ball. So that role, I think, is really important for games just like we saw today.
Yeah. Ross, you're a big fan of anchor role, aren't you?
Well, so I'm going to kind of disagree with Max, if I'm perfectly honest. So I think, yes, you can sit there and say, we needed the runs on the board. But at the same time, this is 2 games in a row where Virat Kohli opening up, supposedly the best batsman in the world. He's striking at 1-1-3. We've been told so many times that Kohli doesn't get out when he's faced about 30 balls for 30 runs. But there doesn't seem to be loads of the Kohli is a genius fans kind of screaming at us at the moment. So there is a bit of work to do in that space. But they've won 2 games. Virat Kohli's opened up at the top of the order, so we can't exactly criticise as kind of in depth here. But if they are going to win this tournament, especially moving away from Chennai, they need to make sure that is changing, and they need to be making the most of that power play, which I don't think they have been doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think to arbite or to decide between the 2 arguments put forward there, I think Max is probably right on this occasion. One of the reasons that you maybe want an anchor or even 2 anchors in your top 4 is that when the pitch isn't very good, those players are usually the most talented batters in as much as they can adapt to different conditions and different bowling types. I think Kohli basically showed he could do that, and to be fair, so did Glenn Maxwell. It wasn't one of Glenn Maxwell's most explosive innings today, but he got the job done, didn't he? What did he get? 60 odd, 59. I did work out. I think he scored 98 runs this IPL, which is only 10 fewer than he managed in the whole IPL last year, which is pretty
he was an opening bowler last year. Let's not forget. So.
Right, let's talk about one of the star bowlers, because we don't really... I mean, we only get to see Rashid Khan we only get to talk about Rashid Khan really for the IPL, because we don't follow Afghanistani cricket and we don't cover like the CPL in detail. He was pretty good today for his 18 for 2 or 4 overs, wasn't he, Ross?
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's just frustrating you don't get to watch more of him. The fact that he can only bowl 4 overs in a T20 is just... it limits what you can do as a fan. But the guy on this Chennai pitch is dynamite, right? He's so difficult to face. I think he's... Any team that come up against him, he's the one who gives Sunrisers that opportunity, and he is their shining star, which when you consider you've got one of the greatest Australian short format batsmen of all time in the team, you've got the New Zealand captain, etc. Like, he is the standout star for them.
Yeah, Max, we tipped him, didn't we, to win the orange or purple, the wicket cap,
Purple.
If his team could back him up a bit. They weren't, all the rest of them weren't amazing today, but he still managed to come through, didn't he? And he got the big one. He got the Villiers, and we saw what the Villiers did to Mumbai Indians, 4 nights ago. Bit of a rank half-tracker that got the Villiers in the end. But did you see that as a bit of a turning point in the match?
Well, rank half trackers at Chennai seem to be a very dangerous delivery, don't they? So perhaps it was all planned. I thought that getting to Villiers was absolutely vital to SRH in that, purely because of what you said, what he did the other day, and the ability that he has. He's a cut above, isn't he? So he's the kind of person who can step it up on a pitch that a lot of people will struggle to score on. He's the kind of person that can sort of put that to one side and actually come up with the goods and put on a score that might actually be out of reach. But so I think I thought at that point that SRH might go on and win it, I must say. But as we saw, that wasn't the case. But yeah, you want your key men to get the other people's key men out, don't you? And that's exactly what Rashid Khan did. He is phenomenal.
In general, I mean, any bowler really, to get a guy out, it's a good result, isn't it? You're going to take it.
Could be Shahbaz Ahmed. Doesn't really matter, does it?
Let's move on to the second innings. Dave Warner, in his opening role, he looked good today, like ominously good. 54 off 37. It looked like they were going to win easily. I mean, even when he was out, it looked like the job was done. Is this going to be a good year for David Warner, Ross, based on what you've seen?
Well, from the last innings, people were saying, should Dave Warner be dropped out of the team? And now he's at 50. You're saying, oh, is he going to have a great season? Like, we don't. It's 2 games in, right? We obviously don't know. But if Dave Warner I think his captaincy limits this side, and I'm just going to stick by that. But his batting is useful. It didn't look like he was harbouring any injuries today, so I think some of the question marks over his fitness have probably now been answered.
He was charging around in the field, wasn't he? Definitely no problems there.
I'll tell you what I have noticed as the question to replace should Warner be dropped is should Bairstow be dropped. So what did he get, like a 50 in the last game? Looked really good. Only got 12 off 13 balls today on a absolute bomb site of a wicket. He's got to go. It's time to bring Williamson in.
Yeah, I like the yin and yang of it, to be perfectly honest. But there's one person who has to be criticised here, and it is Ridham and Saha. Max, you said it in your kind of opening soliloquy about them, but if IPL had a naughty step, Ridham and Saha should be sent to that, and he should go and sit on it for a very long time to consider what he's done, and then retire from the game. 1 off of 9 was what? Like, Mohammad Siraj is a good bowler, but he is not a bowler where you could sit there and go 1 off 9. Is it? That is appalling.
He made Siraj look like he was bowling about 500 miles an hour.
Maybe he was. We don't know. We weren't there, were we? I did think that was quite interesting. Mohammad Siraj has not always been the most successful bowler in the IPL. He's pretty good. Certainly done well in the Test arena since he's broken into that. But he is limited as a white ball bowler on a pitch where surely at half time in this game they had a little chat and the chat probably went something like, it's quite easy to bat for the first 10-12 overs on these wickets and then it's virtually impossible to bat, so let's make sure we use the power play, boys. And he's gone out and he's translated that into a strike rate of 12, and You know, like that. You can criticise someone like Johnny Bairstow for not scoring loads of runs, but he came in at a difficult time to bat against difficult bowlers. Saha, he had one of the easier opening bowlers to face in the IPL. New ball on a wicket that was, you can actually, it was all right when the ball was hard.
It wasn't swinging today either, which
is
worth pointing out.
So the question is there around. So in that position, we talked around how Sunrisers kind of structural issues and the way in which they make decisions in that team at the moment. Should Bairstow have been sent in to open up? So Abhishek has actually asked it, and Swadin, thanks very much for the super chat, mate. Really appreciate it. You might well be our number one fan. Who knows? Max's mum might be pretty high up on that list, but you might be a close too. But Jack, do you think that Bairstow in that scenario, especially when for some reason they decided to chase, shouldn't be hidden away at kind of 4?
I think from an England fan point of view, it's nice that Bairstow's going to get some experience batting in the middle order because it's a newish role to him. I think he's fantastic in either position. I think he's really versatile as a white ball player. It's a little bit of a muchness in the Sunrisers batting lineup is not particularly deep. And I don't know whether you want to stack it so strongly with Warner and Bairstow opening when Bairstow is versatile enough to bat at number 4 and maybe give them that stability going into the middle overs. He's also a very good hitter of spin. Again, I know that he wasn't like blasting sixes today, but who was? Rashid Khan. But besides that, who really had any timing? So I think they probably got it about right. I mean, the problem that is always the Sunrisers are always going to have is that they just don't have enough, quality hitters. They don't They're spending. I mean, it's unbelievable. We're going to talk about him in a second, I think, isn't it? Aren't we? But they're spending 11 crore on Manish Pandey. 11. There are probably 20 Indian batters who could do what Manish Pandey's doing. Why is he like the golden guy? Why
they got Pujara for like 20 lakh CSK. They might as well. The Sunrisers might as well have got Pujara.
Well, I know, but you're not massively wrong, and it's not just today or the last innings. He's got a body of work that sort of indicates that this guy really is very one-dimensional, and one-dimensional in the worst way for T20 as well, in that he can comfortably score about a run a ball, and maybe he can push it a little bit when he's really set. But like I say, there literally are 20 guys who can average 25 to 30 at a strike rate of 120 in the IPL. That is actually not that hard to do when you bear in mind. Well, no, but for an elite level batter who it isn't that hard to do. Look at the ball doesn't swing. Look at where the fielders stand. It's look at the bowling changes that are made. If your whole purpose as a batter is to just knock it down to long off every now and then and jog through, it's an accomplishable thing to do in the IPL. I'm really not impressed with him. I think he'd be dreadful.
I actually think he did all right today. Given what we said about Virat Kohli being the foil to Glenn Maxwell, I thought he was a good foil to David Warner up until that over that Harshal Patel bowled, where he just kind of fell apart, didn't he? Really, he got
Shahbaz Ahmed.
No, there was an over before that from Harshal Patel, which went for two runs, where basically Manish Pandey couldn't hit the ball off the square. He got one good Yorker, and then after that he just couldn't hit the ball off the square. Missed out on a.
Oh yeah, I do remember. Yeah,
and that was about the last thing he did before he ended up getting out. And up until that point, I thought he'd done quite well.
What you're saying, Max, is that he had some time at the wicket, and he actually managed to get worse in this innings.
I thought it was a disgrace, if I'm perfectly honest, Max. I get your point around it's a difficult pitch to score on, but the way in which they needed what? I think it was 30 off of about 20 balls, something like that, 35 of 22, something along those lines. There was the opportunity to push twos. He didn't have to go down the pitch. He wasn't going to hit a six. Playing the percentages to Shahbaz Ahmed, a left arm spinner turning the ball away from him, he was nowhere near like hitting that ball for a boundary.
I'm pretty sure as well that was the last over of spin in the innings, which meant you had a Siraj death over, you had maybe a couple of Harshal Patel death overs. Now I know like Patel in particular has been good at death bowling in the 2 games we've seen him so far in the IPL this season anyway. But you've got like Ross. I think what you're basically saying is that pick your moment. Like wait for the guys who've struggled all day to control the run rate, or wait for those seamers and try and hit them.
Maybe. I mean, I see your point, but he'd actually done quite well against spin today, and I think he was set at the crease and he felt he could go for it. It was an awful shot. I think you probably should look actually at the two batsmen who came in after him, who played exactly the same shot, having seen what had happened, having not been at the crease, and you have to question probably their attitude and what they did, especially as it came directly after a timeout, when I assume David Warner had said bat sensibly, because at the end what he said, what we needed to do was play sensible shots because we knew what the wicket was like, and the immediate thing they did after that timeout was just smack the ball straight up in the air. So
it was very amateur cricket. I do agree with you on that front.
Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice.
It's like when you're out there umpiring and someone's clearly lost their head a little bit. You just calm down and they're like, yeah. Slog sweep up in the air. Just like obviously that was going to happen.
Yeah. I think it was just. I think there's a different dynamic between Manish Pandey's innings and Virat Kohli's. I mean, one, Virat Kohli actually did score quicker than Manish Pandey, but two, they were chasing. Manish Pandey was in a chasing team, and he's at this point has seen the same thing happen in 3 consecutive innings, which is it's easy to bat, it's a little bit trickier, it's very hard in the last 5 overs. He is aware of that information. I just like to be in the position he was in when he was out, like 30 off 30 or whatever it was, about that. I don't think it's really forgivable. He doesn't have to. You don't even have to. We're not asking for loads more. We're saying like, score at 115 in that a strike rate of 115, 120 in that situation.
Well, that's kind of what I was saying. That was actually what he'd done up until that Harshal Patel over when he fell apart.
But then
the first 90% of his innings, he actually did do a good job, and then it all went wrong a bit at the end. But I'm just
But that's not how cricket works, is it? You don't when you're out, you don't take 10% of your runs off and then say, oh look, I was doing pretty good or whatever. Anyway, let's move on to that Shahbaz Ahmed over, because that really was and it was either the nail in the coffin or it was the turning point. Ross, at that point in the game, did you think there was any chance that SRH had to win?
Yeah, so this part I was listening to it on commentary because I was working, and I was just like, Sunrisers Hyderabad surely have this in the bag. They've got the players around, they could do this. Then I turned on the TV and saw the minefield. There was black holes on the pitch, and there was that bit where anything that was pitched, it seemed like was difficult to hit, and you were like, okay, fine, I can understand what was happening here. I thought it was a good move from Virat Kohli, if I'm perfectly honest. A man who rarely got compliments for a guy. I thought he actually captained really quite well in this and brought his bowlers on at the right time. And they played their kind of game plan to, not perfection, but pretty well out throughout the game. So I think Shahbaz Ahmed did a great job. And that having a left arm, a spinner like that is really, really, really useful.
Right, Max. On to the last over, because it looked like it was over. And then Rashid Khan pulled one off his nuts for 4. Also had a free hit, and it wasn't over, was it? Did after it yinged and yanged all over the place, did SRH blow it off the last 4 balls when they needed 8?
They almost blew it like 3 times over. No, I think. Asking Rashid Khan to go out there and hit, what was it, 15, 16 to win off the last over is it's not a position you want to be in. So I think it would be very harsh on him to say that he blew it. It would have very much been a case of Harshal Patel completely blowing it if it had gone the way of Sunrisers. I would be very angry if I'd missed a free hit though. That was upsetting. That was very upsetting for him. But again, a little reminder that if you bowl it into the pitch, it's quite difficult.
Yes, but that's what I didn't really get about that full toss. He was going for a Yorker on a bit. Like, if it bounced, you basically couldn't hit it off the square. It was.
Yeah.
There's an
Yorkers
amazing.
were not the way to go for that final over, were they?
There's an amazing debate going on in the live chat about whether Virat Kohli or Babar Azam is the best. Would either of you two like to contribute to that debate?
Well, if you go on runs scored today, then you have an answer.
Yeah, and you're only as good as your last game, Max. So it's Babar.
Yeah, there you go.
Babar Azam. Ross, any counter argument?
I'm just going to get my... Wait, I'll just take this off and show my Babar Azam face tattoo I've got on my back.
Right then, fellas.
Twitter questions?
Pardon? We've got a few
questions.
Twitter questions. The last one, and Ross, I think you wanted to talk about this, was the toss. So 6 games, 6 captains have won the toss, obviously, and all 6 have decided to chase. Davey Warner has won it twice and decided to chase both times, obviously. Did you think that was a mistake, Ross?
I did. I think based upon the Chennai pitch and, I mean, what's even happened in the other game that they played, I think that it showed that it gets harder to play on. And actually, the pitch kind of stays together for part of the first innings, and then the spinners kind of come into it, and bowling into the pitch makes it difficult. And we said that kind of that 150, 160 mark is actually really quite difficult. It's a good score at Chennai. And I think for this, David Warner did make a mistake, and I'm just not clear on what Sunrisers are actually doing at the moment. I don't think they've got their team right. I think they dropped Sandeep Sharma today, which was, I mean, he did have the best time out, but he's a good player. And does he really do that much of a different role to Jason Holder? Don't know. And that balance, I think, was a little bit off, and Mohammed Nabi falling out of the side. Again, probably a good decision, but they didn't probably bring the right person in. So all in all, I think it's difficult to back up whatever David Warner is actually doing, if I'm perfectly honest.
Right, we've got some Twitter questions. There's a few here that basically amount to this one from Navneeth. So Navneeth, you get your name read out, and everyone else, you know who you are. And that's how it basically amounts to. Can SRH bring in Williamson in place of Bairstow for Chennai pitches? Bairstow still getting nightmares. Is Bairstow still having nightmares of Axar Patel? Well, I don't. Like I said, I think we've sort of answered this one. I think they've got the right overseas personnel. The only thing that you could maybe mix up, and I think DJ said this from Edges and Sledges when he came on the show, was that maybe you can bring in Kedar Jadhav and for Holder. And then you can have Williamson, Bairstow, and Warner. Max, how do you like that plan?
I didn't for a minute think that we'd be sitting here advocating bringing in Kedar Yadav.
Well, that's some of
what we'd said about strike rates in history. But where you're missing some overs there, though, aren't you? If you,
well, you're not picking Kedar Yadav. There's no chance.
I don't.
Why are you even entertaining this idea?
I don't think that's no. I don't like it.
Well, that's Sam Earther said this. Kedar Jadhav now actually has a chance of getting selected in the playing 11. Sunrisers Hyderabad are that shite.
Well, there is that. I suppose you want to mix it up.
I guess the question we do it. There is a broader question here about what SRH do next, because they've lost 2 games that they would have wanted to win. I mean, you want to win every game, but they're so they've lost to KKR and RCB. They're both going to be playoff contenders, both of those teams, I think. So it's not like losing to Mumbai Indians, like I said earlier in the show. These are big games that they've lost. Do they need to mix something up here, or is the method reasonable, i.e. like try and keep teams to 150 and we'll chase that regularly, or try and post 160 and we'll be able to defend that regularly, or maybe the game's moved on, maybe teams are just better at beating bowling heavy sides, Ross?
I think so for Sunrisers, Sumit Mishra in the chat talked around the bringing in Sandeep Sharma for Holder, Kane for Vijay Shankar, who looks to be stealing a living at the moment based on his other 2 performances, and then giving them that option to open up with Bairstow and Warner, and then have Kane sitting at 4. it also gives them the opportunity to bring in Abhishek Sharma, who is another spin option. And it means you can get rid of Riddiman Saha. So Riddiman Saha, right, at the moment, Sunrisers seem to have 4 players who are pretty out of nick and kind of don't look like they add anything to the team. When they're in your starting 11, that is not a good sign. It is difficult for them because of their auction mishaps. And it's going to be a long way back for them in the tournament, but they do have the big name players to do it. Any team with Rashid Khan in needs to be feared.
Yeah, I suppose that is true. I mean, I think, any team with Rashid Khan, Dave Warner and Bairstow is going to win cricket matches. And I think you add on top of that Natarajan and Bhuvneshwar Kumar as some top-level Indian talent. And you've got a reasonably strong core. It's going to be a bit of a fight, though. They're going to have to duke it out for that last playoff spot. What are they down to? There's 12 matches left. 8 wins pretty much guarantees you get there. It's hard. It is really hard to win 66% of your games in the IPL, and that's the situation they're in now. A pretty poor start. Let's finish off on this, and then we'll go. Let's just flip it round and talk about RCB quickly. Then we'll see what's in the live chat. RCB 2 wins from 2. Max, over the moon.
Oh, absolutely. They'll be delighted, especially given that the first win was against Mumbai Indians, as you said. So that's almost like a freebie, I suppose, a freebie bonus for them. And we did say at the start that they're in with a shout with the players that they can put out in their first 11. What I am surprised about is the players that they have put out in their first 11 and how well they've done. So really, really exciting, especially with Patel coming back. He looked good for the 5 minutes that he was playing. I think Glenn Maxwell being Glenn Maxwell is just such a massive thing for them, and that's really probably the difference between them winning their first 2 and losing their first 2 games. Cool.
Right, Ross, what's over on the chat?
Oh, there's all kinds of stuff. There's all Babar Azam still going. We've got Virat is Jason Holder's bunny. Kedar Yadav is the Jesus of cricket. So there's all kinds of stuff happening. But Vic London has given us a super chat. So thank you very much, Vic. And Jackie says that when you say Punjab, it really grates on him.
I've been trying Punjab. Is that right? I think that's right. Vic, give us
Punjab.
another super chat and let us know.
Is it Punjab?
I think if I'm probably the worst one for pronunciation, so we'll quickly move on from that bit. So one of the questions around RCB is from Ravi. No, it's not. It's from Rick and Patel. Do RCB need to switch Dan Christensen for Daniel Sams, who is younger and decent in death overs and can slog it? Max, what are your thoughts on that?
I would say I would be in favour of that. Yeah, I don't think Dan Christian's really done very much, has he, in his first 2 outings, and I fully expected him to be in there as a backup. So I'd be all in favour of mixing that one up.
Okay. Jack, do you agree with that, or do you think the wily old Dan Christian, the kind of CSK pick from RCB, deserves another chance?
I'm surprised he's had a single game. I thought, like Max, he'd just be this backup guy. He's about 406. There are archaeological sites where they find things that are less old than Dan Christian. It's the IPL, isn't it? And obviously, I think we spoke about this a little bit. One of the things that Dan Christian does bring is a bit of a winning culture. He's a serial winner. He's won a lot recently. He's got a lot of experience. He does have skills. He could play. I mean, he's not like a total embarrassment when he comes onto the cricket pitch. I don't want to be that harsh. What I think he really brings RCB is that the potential for a bit of a culture shift. We know RCB as a total joke, who lose games like today or lose games like they did to Mumbai. Make terrible decisions, and we all laugh at them. The 2 games they've won in this tournament so far, I wouldn't say they've been absolutely clinical, But when they've had the chance, they've gone for it, and they've taken games away. When you beat Mumbai Indians like they did, in the manner they did, where de Villiers sort of ran rampant, and when they bowled, Harshal Patel was able to stop Mumbai. They basically stopped Mumbai Indians. Nobody's done that. Nobody did that at all in the IPL last year, and this guy comes in and takes a fiver against them. Mm-hmm. Maybe having players like Dan Christian in your side, who, when the going's a little bit tough, can say, "Look, boys, we're 2 good overs away from being back in this contest." Maybe just that sort of cool head is useful. Does that cool head need to be in your playing 11? I'd question that. Is the only thing, but
yeah, you don't have you're not having a Colts team who are losing their head, and the coach is kind of just bringing himself onto the pitch, be like, "Come on, lads, everyone, calm down. Pass me the ball. I'm just going to have a pop shot." That's not going to happen, is it? We've had some other comments in, Jack. I've been called Ross Armpit, so that's from Anafa Krishnan. So thanks very much for that. And Pranjal has said that Jack is hopeless, which is obviously a hilarious pun on your name.
That's a moniker that started recently. It's starting to stick, I think.
It is.
Yeah, I think it's just Pranjal that says it.
You should see him play cricket. And then Chandramouli comes back and talks about what's Vijay Shankar doing in this team. I mean, he's not batting. He's not really bowling very well. Is it just a case? So is it again coming back to Sunrisers don't have a good plan and don't have a good enough kind of 11 to not play him?
I guess.
Yeah, their squad is just all over the place, isn't it? As if they don't know who to pick. That's what it seems to be to me. Like you've nailed down those like big names, and even then, between them, you're not 100% sure who to put in because you've got Warner, Bairstow and Williamson, and now Jason Roy, which was just bizarre. And I mean, there were other people around that could do just as good a job as Vijay Shankar, I think.
Yes, the Maxwell Brown, Jack Hope, Ross
Prem Garg played last year and also scored no runs, so he could do a job. It's a bit weird. I think we'll see. I expect to see a little bit of rotation over the next few games because I don't see how you can persevere with that soft underbelly. I think this is the worst. If I was a sort of a role player in the IPL, Sunrisers Hyderabad is the lowest of the teams that you'd want to play for because they just don't. They're kind of unique in the IPL in that they're set up to not really need a 7. Or even a 6 sometimes. They want to score all their runs in the top 4, and they want to have 5 really strong bowlers. They only used 5 bowlers today, for example, and who scored all the runs? It was 2 guys in the top 4. So they're almost like specialist fielders. Sometimes they're very rarely going to have an opportunity to affect a game one way or the other because of the tactics that SRH use. Just mean that those guys are a bit superfluous. They don't. I'd have thought that kind of way of playing would be ideal for Chennai as well. I mean, we talked about saying how hard it is to score runs at the close of the innings. If you just like front load and just smash as many as you can for the first 13 and then try and take it down to a run a ball, actually that kind of tactic should work, shouldn't it? But no, guess not.
Right.
I you know what? I genuinely would like it if they just drifted into irrelevance so we didn't have to cover their games. They're just so boring. Even today, it was an exciting match. It was also like...
Yeah. And they really shouldn't be boring, should they? You look at the people they've got in their team. They shouldn't be boring. I don't get it.
Open with Rashid Khan. That's what we should be starting. That's what we should start. Anyway, right, let's we've talked about that game. We've answered every question kind of under the sun. Let's turn our attention quickly to tomorrow's game where Rajasthan Royals, Sons, Ben Stokes, play Delhi Capitals, who I think Norkia has been ruled out with COVID.
He's got the vid.
He's got the vid. Max, so Swadin's just asked before we get into that, what is that animal on Max's window screen? Platypus, dog, or rat?
Imagine none of a curtain with a rat pattern.
None of the above. It is in fact a fox.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
Anyone listening to this as a podcast is going to have to come over to the video today, aren't they? Just to
well, at least they're not answering about your mandolins and trying to emulate Ed Sheeran again. Anyway, Rajasthan Royals versus Delhi Capitals. Surely this is just a banker for Delhi Capitals, right? They're now without Ben Stokes. They might play Liam Livingston, maybe David Miller. Like, surely Delhi. This has got a Delhi win all over it, Max.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? That would be where wisdom would take you. And I'm having a think here about how Rajasthan Royals might win. And
Samson.
And yeah, it's sort of what we said at the start, wasn't it? Basically, individual brilliance is because they have the players who can pull out individual brilliance. So maybe if Samson and Joss Buttler do the same thing, maybe they can do it. But struggling to find a case for Rajasthan Royals. It will be interesting to see what they do about replacing Ben Stokes. I think that's the one bit of interest I have in Rajasthan Royals at the moment.
And Jack, give us the Delhi perspective on that. How do you think they're going to approach the game?
I think they will basically do what they did in the first game, won't they? They looked really good. They were really aggressive with the bat. I thought, well, I mean, if Nortje out, that keeps Wokes in the side. He was really good in the first game. That's not necessarily a bad thing for them. I mean, Wokes as well. He might match up quite nicely, I think, against the Royals opening batters or against the Royals in general, because the Royals are another one of those sides where if you can get rid of one or two guys early, they really struggle, because who comes in the middle? Just like blokes off the street, basically. It's one of their 8 bowlers comes in. I mean, I can't. Yeah, Max, like you say, I mean, I think the Royals are actually quite interesting to talk about because they are so fundamentally weird, and what they do about like losing Ben Stokes is quite interesting. I think I was speculating yesterday that losing Ben Stokes might actually be a good thing for them. They might be able to play somebody who is better at batting, and sort of you don't have to bowl because they're Ben Stokes. If Ben Stokes was called Jeff Peacock, then
Don't know where that came from.
So if he was called Jeff Peacock, then he wouldn't get a gig as a bowler. He might be in. He might get an opportunity to bat sometimes, but he's quite an overrated T20 player, and I think Liam Livingstone's better. I think they'll probably go with David Miller because that's the sort of mistake they'll want to make, and Miller's obviously left-handed as well, and they'll want to keep the right-hand, left-hand thing going on for no obvious reason. But maybe they will eventually come round to picking like a guy who you can actually trust with the ball and who could fill a role lower down the order where they have a massive hole, basically.
I'm not necessarily sure David Miller would be that terrible an idea, given what you just said about them being a little light on the batting side and having to bring in one of their 8 bowlers.
No, but I don't think it's necessarily that they're light. It's just the side doesn't fit together properly. I think you could open with Buttler and Jaiswal. I think Sanju Samson could bat 3. I think Liam Livingstone could bat 5. And then I think you can have Ryan Parag at 6. And I think that actually starts to look like quite a good side. And you've got the benefit there of having Liam Livingstone, who can easily bowl you 2 overs in your
any
top
spin
5.
you like.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I thought they were their first game. Obviously, they a lot of massive cracks in this side were covered up by Sanju Samson playing the innings of his life, and they still lost. Where how they recover that is pretty difficult. They just got so many bad players.
Well, speaking of bad players, Pranay's just said that Rabada's likely to come in for Tom Curran. What's the bet that he comes in for Chris Wokes and Tom Curran actually plays?
Absolutely no chance.
Well, they
you have to be out of your mind, wouldn't you?
They shouldn't do that. If they
do that, I hope that my mighty Colgate-sponsored Rajasthan Royals win. But yeah, I can't see that happening tomorrow. Anyway, are we going to be back tomorrow with a live chat with a live stream?
It's possible. I was busy, but now I'm not, so I can do it.
All right. Game on. Right. Well, thank you ever so much for all your super chats. We really do appreciate it, and all your questions. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Remember to find us at the Cricket Pod on Twitter and Instagram. And if you would like to buy some new cricket gear, go to woodstock.com or .co.uk, whichever it is. Like and subscribe to this video and tell your friends. See you later, everybody.